listening to news, views and interviews on Radio Cardiff.
Good afternoon. You're listening to News, Views and Interviews on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM. I'm Jane Morris. Now, last year, I think it was last year sometime now, wasn't it? Shirley Debono, she came in to the studios. We had quite a controversial News, Views and Interviews special about IPP. I know a lot, well, I was shocked by some of the things I found out, and a lot of you were too. Well, we've got Shirley back now, and she's going to give us an update on her story. But I tell you, we'll start off with the update from Shirley's story first, and then we'll lead on to what she's doing now, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. So, hi Shirley, thank you for coming back in. So, what's happened since towards the end of last year, wasn't it? I think that we did the show.
Yeah, well, since we last did the show, Sean was released on the 17th of February this year. He's doing really well. He did come out to a job, but unfortunately the job has fallen through because the boss moved on to work in Oxford and London. So he's unemployed at the moment, hoping somebody out there will take him under their wing and give him employment. He's doing really well. He's, I'm quite surprised. I thought he might have gone into a depression and stuff like that, but no, he is doing well. So I'm really proud of him. That he'd come out of prison after doing such a long time on a 2.5-year tariff, and he is okay, thankfully. Yeah. The campaign still goes on, because while I was campaigning for Sean, I met Leroy Douglas, his sister, Natalie Douglas, and she explained to me that Leroy was sentenced in February 2006 to a 2.5-year tariff for a street robbery. He'd stolen a mobile phone off a person. No violence was involved in this robbery, and Leroy is still in prison all these years later. I thought Sean's case was hard, but I think Leroy's is even more hard and heartbreaking. Leroy is a C-cap prisoner in a B-cap prison. He's in Highdown Prison in Surrey. This prison where he is at do not offer the courses that Leroy needs to complete to progress through the system. Leroy is now into his 9th year. He sees no light at the end of the tunnel, no way out, sees no way of being moved out of this B-cap prison. He shouldn't be there. Leroy should not be in this B-cap prison. Leroy should have been by now in a D-cap prison, which is an open prison, progressing home to his family.
Okay. Right, there's a lot of information in there that we're going to have to dissect a little bit. But I just wanted to recap for the listeners about Sean. What tariff was Sean given?
Sean was given a 2.5-year tariff.
And how long did he spend in prison altogether until February this year?
He was just going into his 9th year.
Right.
When he was released.
Okay. Now, part of the IPP is that the prisoners have to complete a number of courses.
Yeah.
How many courses did Sean do?
I think Sean completed around about 35 courses, all in all.
Right. So, could you give us some sort of insight into what the courses are? Because, 35 courses, that seems like a lot of courses. What sort of things do they cover? Anger
management, risk assessment, thinking skills, all sorts of there's so many courses I can't even say off my head right now. When sometimes they get told they have to do an enhancement, a thinking skills enhancement or an anger management enhancement. They do alcohol awareness courses, they do drug awareness courses, victim awareness courses. So many courses they do. Then in Sean's case, when they do complete all their courses, they begin to offer themselves to do further courses. Maybe they may say, can I do an enhanced thinking skills course? And they will do so. They do other courses as well, educational courses, maybe maths, English, they may do cookery courses, health and safety courses. There's all sorts of courses they can do. Not available in all cases.
No, I will come on to that. But so Sean did 35 courses. I know that Leroy's done a similar number of courses
Yes.
as well. Is there a prescribed number or list of courses that they have to complete before they can be considered for parole, considered for release?
They have to do the thinking skills course. They have to do the anger management course. They have to do the victim awareness courses and a number of other courses.
But which all sound like, yes, you know, if you're looking to rehabilitate a prisoner, those are the type of courses, the type of things that you
Yes.
would expect them to do. But is there, like I said, is there a prescribed number, or is it just they do the core ones and then they just have to keep carrying on until someone decides that they are fit for release?
Yeah, I think there's all different types of prisoners inside, so there's all different types of courses suit certain prisoners. In Leroy's case, he needs to do the thinking skills course
Right.
and the anger management course.
Okay.
And the prison where he is at right now don't offer them courses.
Right, okay. Now, okay, then going on to Leroy. Now, you mentioned that he's a Category C prisoner in a Category B prison. Now, I certainly had to look that up, and I'm sure that a lot of the listeners out there will want to know what that actually means. What is a Category C prisoner, first of all? What does that mean?
Right. The Category C prisoner is a prisoner that have not committed the more serious offences.
Right, okay.
The Category B prisoner is obviously those that have committed the more serious offences. So Leroy, being in a BCAT prison, is serving a sentence for robbing a mobile phone with prisoners that may have committed murder, serious rape, serious paedophilia, and all offences like that.
But along with the...
I'm not saying that these sort of prisoners are not in a CCAT prison, but the BCAT prisons and ACAT prisons are for the more serious offenders.
So is it just that the IPP courses aren't available in BCAT prisons full stop, or is it just the particular one that he's in that they're not available to him?
I know that the particular prison that Leroy is in do not offer the courses. I don't know if that's in most BCAT prisons. But Leroy is not a BCAT prisoner. He is a CCAT prisoner. He should not be in a BCAT prison. They're categorised.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, you're categorised as a CCAT prison, and that's where you go to a CCAT prison. I think the reason he may be in a BCAT prison as well is because they sentenced so many people, thousands and thousands, to an IPP sentence, and they ran out of spaces in the CCAT prisons. So Leroy, along with no doubt many others, is serving a sentence in a BCAT prison.
I know that the prisoners do get moved around all the time, but is there any kind of onus on the prison authorities to have Leroy in a prison where he can access these courses, where he can be rehabilitated and work towards his release back into the community?
There was a time when Leroy was in a CCAT prison and was moved to a BCAT. But Leroy, I think, has been moved 9 times at least from one BCAT prison to another BCAT prison to another BCAT prison. And none of these prisons that he's been moved to has ever provided these courses that Leroy needs to do to progress through the system. So I think that in itself is an outrage. If they've had the time and the expense to move him from one prison to another, then they've had the time and the expense to move Leroy to a CCAT prison.
I mean, there will be people out there who say, well, you know, if he hadn't done the crime, he wouldn't be in there. He wouldn't be in that predicament now.
Leroy did do the crime, and he's done his time over and over and over again. The time should fit the crime committed. And in Leroy's case, he's just locked up indefinitely. There's a fear by his family, and his mum is fearing this terribly, is that Leroy is going to be that one prisoner serving an IPP sentence caught up in the system and potentially never ever be released.
I will mention at the moment that we do have Leroy's sister Natalie in the studio with us, but she doesn't. You don't really want to speak at the moment, but you are here and obviously supporting him. And we did have a chat earlier, and thank you so much for coming down. But it's not an easy thing, is it, to actually come out and just shout up for your family when they're in these kind of situations, is it?
No, it's not. The very first time I ever come and spoke to someone like yourself, I was a nervous wreck. I don't know where I got the courage from to do it. I was really nervous, but felt that I had to do it because at that time I felt like I was out there on my own fighting this IPP sentence for my son Sean. I think, like I said, in Leroy's case, it's harder than what I went through in Sean's case. Leroy has been in all these different prisons around the country, far, far away from home. Like Sean, I couldn't get to visit him all the time. That was a nightmare. And Leroy's family are finding that the same. You know, it's a nightmare getting there and visiting him and keeping those family ties. So, yeah, it's harder for Leroy, and I think his family are more emotional about it to what I was in Sean's case.
Yeah.
And I think this is why his sister is finding it hard to speak, because she will get emotional.
Of course. And not to forget that Leroy has 2 children as well. He's got his sister, his parents, his family around him. He also has 2 children.
Yeah, he's got 2 children, and the mum of his 2 children passed away last year. So the children have not just lost their daddy, they've lost their mammy as well.
Yeah.
You know, and we're just desperate to get Leroy out of the BCAP prison, into the CCAP prison, where he can prove himself, do the 2 courses that he needs to do to progress through, and be home and be there for those 2 children.
I mean, what will it take to get Leroy transferred to a C category prison where he has the opportunity to do these courses that he needs to be released?
At the moment we're campaigning for Leroy, and we're writing to all different ministers in government and different lords and different organisations that can help us, and radio shows like yourself helping out to highlight his case. We're hoping and praying that with enough pressure put on the government that they will listen and have Leroy moved to a CCAT prison as soon as possible.
Because, I mean, you have been... You know, I mean, you've got all kinds of people. You've got members of the House of Lords, members of the House of Commons, Assembly members, all kinds of people who you've got involved in this campaign.
I went to London Parliament on the 13th of March this year with another campaigner, Leanne Phillips, and we had a meeting with Lord Wigley within the Parliament. And Lord Wigley went on to do a debate in the Lords on the 27th of March. Then there was a big Bingham Rule of Law had a big meeting in the Parliament as well on the 4th of April. I contacted Alvin Lewis, the MP, and asked him would he kindly table an EDM, which is an early day motion, and he agreed, and he tabled the early day motion on the 2nd of April this year. We've got 12 MPs from around the UK that have signed that EDM. A lot of MPs, like my MP, Jenny Willett, she can't sign it because she's a government whip, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't support. We've got lots and lots of MPs that can't sign this EDM but do support what Alvin is calling the EDM. Yeah.
So when will the early day motion be heard?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to speak with Alvin's secretary and find out more on that. There's been so much going on at the moment. But that'll be my next port of call. So.
You did mention to me about Newsnight have covered the issue as well, I think.
Yeah, Zoe Conway of Newsnight on the 13th of March this year. They covered the story on Newsnight about the IPP sentence, and they had good feedback from that as well. The general public do not know about the IPP unless people like me come on a radio and say it or carry on with the campaigning. But we are getting the public on our side, and we're getting more and more MPs and more lords on our side as the years are passing, because now they're realising that Leroy, the likes of Leroy and Sean, are years and years over tariff and seeing no light at the end of the tunnel. You know, although Sean is released, he is still an IPP prisoner for the rest of his life. He'll always have a probation officer. He will always have to go in and see that probation officer. Sean's probation officer has actually been changed 4 times since he's been released on the 17th of March, which for me I think is outrageous.
2 months.
Yeah, he should have a one-to-one with a probation officer. So it's as if Sean had any issues, he got confidence in that probation officer and he can speak with that probation officer. And my fear is, if they keep changing these probation officers over and over, then there's not going to be no one-to-one. Sean's not going to feel confident in the system, and I'm not going to feel confident. And will the same happen to Leroy when he's out, when he needs support? They need support. They're not getting it because of the changes being made.
Yeah. Because, well, certainly, I mean, when someone's in prison for a long time, then obviously there's all the issues of becoming institutionalised. And then, of course, if, you know, like you've got a 2.5 year tariff and you're in there for 9 years, then there's going to be you're going to have a lot of issues, aren't you, when you come out, understandably.
Yeah, I think it will affect, you know, it has affected Sean in a way, even though he's doing well and he's doing great. He's got to take every day as it comes and stuff like that. And I think the same will be for Leroy when he comes out. You can see that, the institutionalisation is there, but like you have to work on it to try and get him out of that. And that is the hard part as well.
Yeah. I mean, they have to do all these courses inside prison to enable them to be released. Do they still get support when they come out of prison? Obviously, you've mentioned the probation officer, and he's had 4 in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Is that the only support they get once they're released?
That is the only support they get when they're released. When Sean was released, we applied for a budgeting loan from the Department of Works and Pensions just before he got his job, and we were told that he had to go to the charity shops and show his prison papers, and they would supply clothes for him, and if he was hungry, then he could go to the food bank. Yeah. Now, I don't think that's support. Sean's one of the lucky ones, as will Leroy. When Leroy comes out, he will have his family. He won't really need to go to people like that. But to be told no, and if you were a prisoner coming out with no family and not the support that the likes of Sean and Leroy has got, then I think that is a road to destruction.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got a petition. You've got a petition up at the moment that you're asking people to sign.
Yeah,
for
we've
Leroy.
set up a free Leroy Douglas petition on change.org. We're looking for all the support and signatures we can get on there for Leroy. We've set up a Facebook group as well, Free Leroy Douglas Facebook group. People can join and you know, where they could give us advice on what to do and stuff like that. So yeah, we got 2 sort of campaigns up and running.
Yeah, I was having a look at the Facebook page earlier, and you've put this has almost become a full-time job for you, hasn't it now?
It has,
campaigning.
Yeah. My goal now is to say, along with Natalie and Natalie's family, they are supporting. We're supporting each other and, you know, getting things up and running. And there's people on the group as well messaging and stuff. But our goal now, I think, is to get Leroy out of BCAT conditions and let the public know what's going on. He shouldn't be there. He should have progressed to TCAT by now, and we need all the support we can get. There will be people out there that think, oh, well, what he did was wrong, you know, let him rot in there. Some people might think like that. No, that's not right. He didn't commit the far more serious offence. He took a mobile phone. Leroy knows what he done was wrong. Leroy's sorry what he done. He regrets doing what he done, but he can't go back. You can't turn the clock back. You know, and the only thing that can happen for Leroy now is to progress through the system. And like Sean, he's out, he's free, and let Leroy have the same chance that Sean has got to prove himself. Unless they let Leroy out, you know, he's not going to be able to prove himself.
Well, I was looking at one of the other links, because obviously as yourself, there's Leroy's case, but there's so many of these cases out there.
Yeah.
And I know one of the cases was the guy was actually terminally ill.
Yeah,
isn't it?
his name is Jason Henry Grant.
Yeah.
He again did a robbery. He's into his 10th year in prison. He's just been diagnosed with terminally stomach cancer. When they first put the petition, that's another petition on change.org, for David Cameron to free Jason Henry Grant. He was given 4 months to live. With chemotherapy, he'll have 8 months to live. His family, he's got 2 daughters, he's got a mum, he's got a loving family behind him. 4 months they give him to live, 8 months with chemo, but those months are now turning into weeks and they still haven't freed him. And I think it's outrageous, because how can he be a danger to the public when he's dying of cancer? So when Sean was in prison, I always had the fear that he may become ill, and I wouldn't be there for him. So I can put myself in Jason's mum's shoes with the way she's feeling. So we're appealing for people out there to sign David Cameron to free Jason Henry Grant.
I know the link to that is on your on the Facebook page. You had something you wanted to read out for us, which is kind of linked into that.
I keep getting tongue-tied when it comes to anything to do with the legal aid and sentencing of offenders thing. But I will read it. Under the LASBO Act 2012, the Justice Secretary, Chris Grayling, has the power to put an order to Parliament which would require the parole board to direct the release of the likes of Leroy caught up in the system, providing that certain conditions are met where the far more serious offenders are involved. The Justice Secretary is acting unreasonable in applying a blanket refusal to use discretionary powers the Parliament has specifically given him for a purpose. Parliament expects the Justice Secretary to use this discretion, and in refusing to do so, he is surely flouting the will of Parliament. Could this be because in 800 years he is the first Justice Secretary ever not to have a law degree under his belt?
So basically, the Justice Secretary, who is
Chris Grayling,
he could intervene on any of these cases.
Yes.
He has the power to do that.
He has the power. He has the power to show a bit of compassion towards the Jason Henry Grant's campaign and free that man and let him go home to his family and die within the arms of his mum and his family and his children. That a bit of compassion there, and also show a bit of compassion to the likes of Leroy. They're stuck in a BCAP prison with no light at the end of the tunnel, sees no hope whatsoever. He's in a hopeless situation with no courses there for him to complete, to get out of that system and into a CCAP prison and progress on.
So however you look at the prison system, whether you see it as punishment, whether you see it as rehabilitation, I suppose if it's working properly, it needs to have a little bit of both in there. Yes, of course, crimes have to have some sort of consequences, but actually it's all about rehabilitation. It's about, at the end of the day, that person needs to come back into society and be a productive member of that society. But at the moment, he's just languishing because he cannot do that.
No, I think it's outrageous. I think they're wrong. David Blunkett, the Home Secretary in the Blair government that brought this sentence out, has admitted publicly on BBC Newsnight that he got the implementations wrong and in some cases an injustice. Now I put it to Chris Grayling and the rest of the ministers in government that it is an injustice in the likes of Leroy Douglas's case. He should be freed. We're just being nice at the moment. Please get him out of a BCAP prison and put him into a CCAP prison where he should be. And once that's done, the campaign will go on. It won't stop. Chris Grayling has got the powers to use. Please, Chris Grayling, use them powers. Get Leroy out of that BCAP prison, put him where he should be, and let him progress through the system.
And I've just got, according to the Ministry of Justice's own statistics, there are still 5,335 prisoners on indeterminate sentences for public protection at the moment. And the moment they seem to be getting released about 400 a year. So according to their own actual statistics, there's about a 9-year backlog.
There is a
there?
9-year backlog. They've admitted there's a 9-year backlog. In all the debates that's been going on in the Parliament over the last months or so, they've all admitted there is a 9-year backlog. Has Leroy got to serve another 9 years before he's released? Murderers get out in less time than that. No, I don't think it's right. They've got a 9-year backlog. Sort it out. Use your discretion, Chris Grayling, and use them powers that you were given by Parliament.
Well, let's hope that he's listening to Radio Cardiff today, and he feels a little bit of compassion.
Yeah.
We have run out of time, but I'd like to thank you both for coming in. Thank you, Natalie, for coming in as well. I know you didn't feel you could say anything, but thank you for coming in anyway. Shirley, can you tell the listeners how they can get involved in the Facebook page, how they can get involved in the campaign, or just where they can find out more information so that they can make up their own minds about it?
There's two campaign groups. As I said, there's still the Free Sean Lloyd campaign group because he is still an IPP prisoner. I'm still fighting for that. And there is the Free Leroy Douglas campaign group. They can ask to join the Free Leroy Douglas or the Free Sean Lloyd, and they'll be added to both, whichever win. Just get on the campaign groups, or they can maybe phone in the studio and get my telephone number from Jane.
Yeah, no
would be
problem.
a good idea. If there's anyone else out there passionate about IPP or got someone serving an IPP, you don't have to be on have someone on an IPP to support us. You can just be outraged by the barbaric sentence. So I'm sure you could always get my phone number from Jane as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm happy to pass that on. And of course, if there's any other families affected by it, then you're very happy to talk
Please
to
come
them.
on the group, because there's so much information on the Free Sean Lloyd group and the Free Leroy Douglas group that a lot of people don't know there's help out there for them.
Absolutely. Well, I did put the link to the petition on the Radio Cardiff News, Views and Interviews Facebook page a little bit earlier on. I'll see if I can work out how to put the link to your Facebook pages on there. I'll find someone who can do it if I can't do that. But there are links already on there, and I'd just like to thank you both for coming in today, and I know you're going to keep us updated on your progress.
I'd like to thank you for having us both in here and highlighting Leroy's case as well, because it doesn't stop here. It goes on and on and on until we do get justice. Justice for Leroy Douglas.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both again for coming in.
Thank you.
No problem.
This is Bitty McLean saying you're in tune to Jane Morris with news, views and interviews on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM.